You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight at episode 175, we'll let you know what's been going down over the last week in Overwatch and Overwatch esports. We'll take a look at some of the hottest community topics that have surfaced from this past week, and look ahead to the play-in tournament as we find out which two Overwatch League teams will be rounding out the top 8 for the Overwatch League season playoffs. But before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar. And Ed, it's been an interesting week. We have WoW Classic, we've had a couple of PTR updates, a lot of queue times for our selected server. But outside of that, how has this week been treating you, my friend?
Yeah, I don't even know if you can call it queue times. So, like, I mean, and they seem to have fixed it, but, like, night one, I waited in the queue for 4 hours, and I still didn't get it. Right. So that's not a queue. That's just a long-ass line.
That's just the Ilios well.
Yes. But yeah, no, we had WoW Classic. If you haven't heard from literally everyone who plays video games, they damn near broke Twitch. They were up to, 1.1 or 1.2 million people were watching Classic WoW on Twitch.
Dead game, guys. Dead game.
My favorite was they were at 850,000 an hour before the game even launched. They were just watching people wait to click log in. I was just like, all right. So you had all that. We had some patch updates. One that we will talk about that I think is much bigger than all the rest. Due to a new hero that's coming out and the counter viability of said hero. But yeah, it's been a fun week. Fantasy football it's the big week for fantasy football. I've had 2 drafts. We have another one tomorrow, and then I have one on Saturday. My buddies rented a house across the street from Lambeau Field, so we're gonna have our draft up there. And yeah, it's been fun. How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I have had to sit through a couple of queues to play Classic, but I got my warrior tank up to 16 to take my first RFC yesterday, which went pretty well. But I do forget how god-awful Rage Generation is at such a low level. It's just like, well, I'm trying to get Threat, and I'm trying to use, Sunder, but I'm starved for Rage. Can't do that. I'm starved for Rage. So I'm just meleeing, so it's just like, oh, come on.
Well, you got to get those weapon skills up there, Totem.
That's not the problem. My weapons are maxed out for my level.
What is that, at like 25?
No, at this point it's like 70, 75.
Oh,
like that.
Yeah, you should get working more on those, I think. That's obviously the problem.
That's clearly what it is. It has nothing to do with the fact that I only regen like 2 every like 30 seconds, what it feels like.
Excuses.
But it's been a good week, and it's really funny seeing like everyone just in WoW like for the past couple of days, whether it is in queue, and I have to say, like, we've seen queue times or just like queue positions upwards of like close to 17,000, 18,000. It is absurd, so much to the point where they had to hotfix it to like kind of like raise how many people they're letting in at once, so we saw that one through. But we're not here to talk about WoW, we'll play that after. We're here to talk about Overwatch. There's a lot of stuff going down, guys. And in case you haven't heard, of course we got the play-in tournament this week. So I know everyone's been filling out their brackets. We'll see how quickly they get busted. But let's go ahead and jump into the news for the week. So first off, we had something that surfaced on Amazon here this week that kind of reignited some rumors about Overwatch coming to the Nintendo Switch. So there was a new listing on Amazon in regards to a new Overwatch-themed Switch case that was officially licensed by not only Nintendo, but Blizzard Entertainment. So the case in itself has that black and yellow Overwatch color scheme. Of course, you have the Overwatch logo basically front and center on the front of it. And since then, this product page has been taken down. But we've known for quite some time that the developer team has been, they've been keeping an eye on it. Obviously, like we saw the Diablo 3 Switch port happen, and they've always seemed to be pretty open-minded about Overwatch coming to the Switch for a port, but that they would be facing some challenges in order to make that happen. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, what exactly does this mean? Could this be some crossover? I know some people, like on 4chan, have been talking about the potential of maybe seeing Overwatch Heroes as part of Smash Ultimate. I don't want to read too much into that, and plus it's 4chan, so, take what you read on the internet with a grain of salt. But, usually when there's smoke, there's fire, but I don't want to just outright say, like, oh, it's absolutely going to happen, but it's just another bone to kind of, like, throw at people to try to pick at this point. But if we're going to hear anything, Ed, it probably won't be until BlizzCon anyway.
Yeah, it might be, like, pre-BlizzCon, because, like, let's be real. Overwatch on Switch is not that big of a deal. It's cool, it's fun, but you're not going to play, shooting, like, you're not playing CSGO on the Switch.
You're playing Splatoon.
Yeah, you're not playing, like, team-based games that require constant communication and all that fun stuff. It's not a game that's made for the Switch. Now, there are controllers you can use, but it kind of deviates from the purpose of a Switch of, like, being able to pick it up, play it on the go, stuff like that. That is not what, Overwatch is meant for. This is cool, and yes, the possibility is Tracer might end up in Smash, or you know what I mean, or something like that. But I don't know. This just doesn't seem like a massive deal to me, because Switch is not Overwatch's target audience at all. Like, let's be real. Like, Overwatch was not meant for Switch customers.
Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, there still are plenty of FPS titles that move on to the Switch. Now, that being said, a lot of them aren't as team-based oriented. So I don't know, like, what the communication aspect would be with, like, the Nintendo Online, because I just haven't messed around with that too much. So that could cause a couple of issues should that port ever happen. But it's not out of the realm of possibility to see FPS titles actually come into that system in particular. But, not everyone's actually playing their Switch on the go either, so I can't imagine a situation where a lot of people would be using it with the handheld mode, specifically for FPS titles, unless they are traveling.
Yeah, and if you're traveling and you have to play a game where you have to work as a team and you're connected to Wi-Fi, that's not good. Like, that, it's just not good. It's different than, like, yeah, I know Fortnite and whatnot are on mobile and stuff like that, but that's a different kind of, like, possible team up and stuff like that. It's just, it's hard to explain how they're just different. I think everyone can kind of agree on that. Like, it's not a BR, Overwatch is. So, yeah, it's cool. I think they're just, expanding their boundaries to keep trying to sell units. And honestly, you know what? Maybe this will give a little, like, they probably saw a dip in sales. Mm-hmm. So this might give them a little bit of an uptick. Who knows? But yeah, probably BlizzCon, maybe a little bit before.
So other than that, we also have an update that hit the PTR. It does have a new feature that we'll get into here in just a little bit, but there were balance updates coming with this PTR patch that dropped on August 22nd. So let's kind of like go through these one by one, and I want to get your thoughts on the changes, or like how you think this is going to impact the character, things like that. So first up, they made some changes to Bastion and his self-repair. So self-repair no longer consumes resource, while Bastion is at full health. And then Bastion now currently initiates 0.25 seconds of recovery time when canceling self-repair with with weapon fire.
Sure. I mean, this is such a minor thing with Bastion that this obviously will not change any aspect of Bastion play. It just won't. Like, these are more quality of life type situations. It's not going to make Bastion viable in any shape or form.
Yeah, because there are times when you're expecting incoming damage and it might not be happening right away, that you're just automatically are looking to repair yourself with the right click at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, I don't really see too many changes with Bastion. I mean, normally, like with the Bastion ones, they're more heavy-handed, since Bastion is kind of like one of those odd heroes that is more viable at, the lower ranks as opposed to the higher ranks. So really not too much there, but the next one that we're going to talk about is pretty monumental, because it's a target for beam DPS in particular. So it doesn't affect just one hero, but it affects, I would say, one more so than the other, just due to the current state of the meta, seeing as we've been seeing a lot of shield compositions. So taking a look at Symmetra, they looked at her primary fire, so the beam width was lower from 0.3 to 0.15 meters. Then you also lowered the beam DPS level from 65, 130, 195 to 60, 120, 180.
Needed. Much needed. This was the change that I was talking about at the beginning. Like, Symmetra, when you're running, we're seeing a lot of double shield out there. Now, that may just be because everyone wants to play Sigma, and Sigma's not a main tank, truly. He's a hybrid of a flex tank and a main tank. So you're playing that, and then you're playing with a Orisa or a Rhine or something like that. So you're having all these shields. Well, Symmetra thrives on shields, and that's why you're seeing this change, is because now we may not see the meta of Sigma or two shields, but this is like preventative of, if we see a meta with two shields, there's not one DPS hero that is crazy overpowered. And so they're slowly, reeling Symmetra back in hopes that it doesn't get out of control. Because right now it kind of is out of control on how strong Symmetra is against double shield tanks.
Yeah, so much the fact that you could literally spam Symmetra in your placement matches, even though you never play her, and end up winning a majority of the games like when we did.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you just left click at them, you're gonna win.
Pretty much. Now that being said, it is worth noting that with the double shield meta that has started to surface, this has been trickling up to the higher ranks as well. So this is going to be something that's going to change from top to bottom for a lot of players out there. So we'll definitely keep a close eye on that. But with a lot of teams running Symmetra, Orisa, and Sigma, we'll see how much this is going to be an actual impact. Because at the end of the day, 15 damage doesn't really look like a whole lot. But they also did nerf beam damage for Zarya as well. So for one, with her primary fire, the beam width no longer scales with energy. So before it was from 0.1 to 0.2, now it's always split at 0.15. And then her max beam DPS was lowered from 190 to 170. So even a fully powered Zarya deals less than Symmetra at level 3. Huh.
Yep. That is the power of the Symmetra. So, Zarya, the thing is, Zarya wasn't actually getting played
As prominently, yeah.
Yeah, as prominently, and it's just like they were seeing some wonky things come from beams, and they wanted to kind of put a kibosh on it, like across the board. So, well, there's only 2 characters with beams, and they went after them. It is kind of funny that a fully charged Zarya now does less than a fully charged Sim, but that also makes sense.
Sim is a DPS. So.
Yeah, Sim is a DPS. So, before it was like, oh, all right. Well, technically, before Zarya did less damage than a fully charged Sim, but nobody was playing Sim. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but yeah, these are minor tweaks here and there to get a more balanced game, which is fine with me. Nothing crazy like, hey, we're gonna take her damage in half and put her right click on a cooldown, like some crazy stuff like that. So yeah, these are just minor things here and there.
So we also have a couple of changes to Sigma, kind of dealing with a lot of his toolkit. So first up, his Hyper Spears. They reduce the explosion damage from 35 to 30. His Experimental Barrier now has a toggle option for deploying. Good quality of life change there, because I can't tell you how many times I forget to actually hit it or stop it, for that matter. So that's a good one. Accretion explosion damage was increased from 50 to 60. And then his alt, Graphitic Flux, the intro cast time was increased from 0.4 to 0.6 seconds. So a little bit more time to get the heck out of dodge on that front.
Yeah, I mean, I like these changes. You nerf the main damage aspect of Sigma, but you buff the more skill-based and the accretion. Because, up in face-to-face, Sigma was doing a very large amount of damage. So this nerf is nice. And the accretion is, it's one of those things, I still don't know how I feel about it. Like, it's annoying, yes, but is it, like, really that big of a deal? It's kind of, like, to me, it's and we compare it to this all the time, it reminds me of Fire Strike. Like, it's an annoyance, but it's not really damaging you too much, because a lot of times you're not getting stunned by it.
Well, I mean, either way, if you do get hit by both explosions and accretion, it's still going to deal the same amount of damage, because it's still at 120 between the two abilities.
Exactly, and I don't know. It's just one of those things where I just don't know how I feel about the ability, but they're just tweaking, trying to make it more balanced. These are the first real changes I think we've seen since Sigma's been live. So they're not doing too much, and I don't think Sigma needs a whole lot of changes, because Sigma is not overpowered. It's not an overpowered, oh my god, tank ability. The ultimate, while cool, is not very effective, because it is, for most cases, it's pretty easy to get out of the ultimate, or negate it altogether, or something like that. It's a zoning thing, which I'm fine with a tank ultimate being a zoning thing. And if you happen to get somebody in it, get 2 people in it, better. But the one thing I was hoping is, if Sigma does the ult on point, it's not an auto loss. I'm not a fan of that, because, like, yes, there are other abilities or other ults that you can use to get people to scatter off the point, but they can also stay in some certain situations. They can, live through it, negate it, do whatever. This one you can't. You're just sucked up into the air, nothing you can do about it. So, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that, but because that's what you're going to see a lot of is, and if we see Sigma and Pro play, they're going to hold on to the ultimate until the end when it's in overtime and they're on point, and then they just hit the ultimate on point and then they lose.
Well, that's not really any different than how it is currently. A lot of people still like to stockpile their ults until it does hit overtime to secure that last bit of the candle burning out.
But this is not banking ultimates, like multiple.
This is
the other team could have 6 ultimates, hit them all at once to one Sigma ult, and Sigma ult will prevail.
That's why you just have one person stagger. Good to go.
Yeah. So it's one of those, and the fact that nothing can be done about it. You can get out or survive any ultimate in the game, except this one. There's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, that's the only thing I think I would like for them to change.
So outside of that, there was also a new feature that was added for shared installs, which I know you've already have done at this point. I still need to do this, but basically what's going to happen is the PTR and the live Overwatch client are now going to share storage space when installed to the same file path on your disk. So that should reduce the overall amount of space that's required to install and update the clients. So the PTR client that's out there right now should only be about 1.2 gigabytes of storage, and if you have the PTR installed, basically you can uninstall it and reinstall it to a common disk location to get this benefit. And it is worth noting that the replay viewer also supports shared install with the PTR and live client. So, Ed, I know you and Spider both went through and did this. How much space did you actually save when you changed the install location? You're muted.
I was pulling it up. It was early. It was early this time. Roughly 40 gigabytes.
That's a good amount.
Yeah, because I have a very small drive on this computer because I have an external too. So Overwatch and Warcraft are one of the few games I actually have directly saved onto my computer, and I'm just like, what is going on here? So I did that, but it's to uninstall PTR, you have to legit go to the Overwatch PTR folder that you have and just delete the whole folder.
Okay.
Make sure you don't delete the Overwatch one. There are 2 separate folders when you go in there. Delete it and then just go back in and reinstall it, and it's like nothing happened. Now, I'm pretty sure before it wasn't this way with the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you should be able to go out and delete the replay viewers and do the same thing and save even more space. So might have to do that. Although I'll probably just delete the viewers and not reinstall them because I've never used it. So I mean, let's be real. How many of us have gone through more than once to check it out to watch old Overwatch League clips?
If I had to guess a percentage, I'd probably say less than 1% would be my guess.
It's kind of like how the replay system now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone wanted it. I'm not saying a whole lot of people using it.
Well, I mean, if we had a way to save... If we had a way to save the replays, it would be
then
different.
That's
but
different.
We don't have that.
But yeah, it's just like, all right. Might just remove them altogether. So, but this was awesome. Like, this just freed up more room on my computer, which is nice for everyone.
Well,
WoW Classics takes up so much space.
It's just prepping you to give you more room for Overwatch 2 when that hits.
Yes, in a few months.
I wouldn't say a few months.
It will be announced in a few months.
Well, luckily, to make sure that everything is ready to go for that, we do have some new Overwatch job listings that were posted over on the Blizzard website. So a couple of different things. Obviously, we recently heard about the rumors about Overwatch 2 being kind of designated for PvE-related content, kind of similar to Left 4 Dead, or like the Overwatch Archives missions. And Blizzard is currently looking for a senior game writer, who's basically going to be looking to write and iterate on compelling dialogue for characters, missions, and cinematics. Now, the cinematic thing, a lot of people are like, well, are they talking about the animated movies? No, they are not talking about that. We're talking about in-game cinematics. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone at this point has given up hope on the animations at this point, with how few and far between they've been.
Yeah, I know I have 100% given up on getting any more cinematics outside of the one probably at BlizzCon. But no, this reads like these job listings read as we're getting an Overwatch 2 that is probably single player, and it is a story-driven game, like you said, Red Dead Redemption, stuff like that. So this is the start of it. I don't think we may get an announcement this year at BlizzCon, but release in realistically 2021. Like, I don't even think it would release next year. I'd be shocked if it was released next year. But this is good. This is very good. If they're bringing them in to help write those weird, anime style, cinematics that they have been releasing, like with the new characters, then boo on you, Blizzard. Boo on you.
So that wasn't the only job listing that was posted. They're also looking for a design manager who will kind of oversee the design team, focus on creating the next generation of content for the Overwatch franchise. And Ed, we were talking about the Switch earlier on, and maybe we won't see Overwatch on the Switch until Overwatch 2 hits. Because next gen could either mean the next generation of the game, next generation of the systems. But we've basically always known, Overwatch had been given that franchise tag to ensure, that there would be future Overwatch titles. So we'll see where we're going to go from here, but a lot of this to me just points towards that Overwatch sequel that, the rumors did surface recently, but, I don't want to rule out the possibility that they'll take it in other directions as well, since they do seem to have their hand in different cookie jars right now when it comes to their franchise IPs.
Knowing at the pace Blizzard goes at, they'll announce at BlizzCon that Overwatch BR will be releasing sometime mid-2020, and then Warcraft Teamfight Tactics, whatever, to be released in late 2020. That's what I'm going with.
Auto chess, so hot right now.
It is so hot right now, especially since all the streamers aren't being paid anymore to just stream Teamfight Tactics. But no, it could be literally anything. Like, they did say they were working on games for the phone on every one of their ISPs. So who knows what that could be. So nothing would shock me when it comes to this. I don't think they could come up with anything that would shock me for Overwatch 2 or the next Overwatch content.
So you're saying, if my prediction of Dream Daddy Overwatch is a sequel, you're not going to be surprised?
No, I'm not going to be surprised, because then what will happen? And I'll be like, freaking Totem called it. He's got an inside source, and then I grill you on your inside sources.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
I wouldn't be surprised if, Jerry Bruckheimer came around and was doing a live-action Overwatch movie with explosions everywhere, starring Shia LaBeouf, and I don't know, probably The Rock, and
Just because he's in everything.
in everything. I mean, we get Keanu Reeves, but that's only if the movie is in like 4 years, because then we'd be past the Keanu Reeves, fandom that's going on right now.
I think it'll like get to the peak next year, since we got the new Bill and Ted. I gotta see when the next John Wick release is. That'll probably depends on how
but
how much
they got
does that go.
Matrix 4
Right,
is announced, so you got that coming out,
which was overshadowed by other things happening with Disney and Sony.
Yeah, there's a few Disney things happened this past week as well.
A couple of things, yeah.
I fanboyed out a lot. Let's just go with a lot.
I will say that Mandalorian trailer. Whew.
Oh my god!
So
the Mandalorian show is gonna be great. In case you guys didn't know, random tidbit: Taika Waititi, the director from Thor Ragnarok, is actually part of the cast of The Mandalorian. He is the voice of IG-11, the robot in the group.
The more
you know. He's also directing an episode. But yeah, the Star Wars montage, the Star Wars Clone Wars, the Star Wars everything, all the Marvel stuff. We have Game of Thrones in Disney now.
Yeah.
Because they're all in the Eternals. All right, we got to move on, because I could talk about Disney Plus and what Disney announced for the next 2 hours. I mean, if you want me to, I'm good.
I mean, you and I can talk about that after the show, because there was a lot of good tidbits there. So let's go ahead and jump into this week's hot community topic. So first off, this is something that I know blew up in our Discord after you posted something about it, and that is the fact that the Roll Queue beta season for competitive is going to be used for next season. Now, I will say right out of the gate, with the beta season, there was a lot of misinformation or people reading things wrong. So basically, the game developer, Scott Mercer, stated that Roll Queue beta results are not going to be thrown out entirely and will be used in the matchmaking for Season 18. So, in our Discord, I know, Ed, you posted, like a screenshot of what he posted on the forums. And what's important to note is when they announced the beta season, they basically stated that the games wouldn't affect your permanent career profile. So that would just be like stats. That's not talking about MMR or anything like that. But a lot of people are making assumptions based off of that statement. So that's why there's all of this confusion. Now, that being said, I will say the timing of when they made this announcement, even if people had, like, the wrong idea behind it, they announced this, like, 4 days before the end of this beta season. And I know some people in our Discord had said, like, they were trying new things. Obviously, with Sigma being involved in the Roll Queue beta season, you had a lot of people going in and playing Sigma right out of the gate in competitive, even though that's not a normal behavior, because normally you have the hero being released first, they wait a couple of weeks, and then he's put into competitive play. But at the end of the day, in a situation where the beta results are completely thrown aside, you're probably still matched either too low or too high to where you should be. But the timing definitely was an issue for me. But, the new season kicks off soon. That's September 1st. But if you just decided to ignore the data from this Roll Queue beta season, you're basically just making things take longer to get you to the correct rank anyway. So this is just one of those situations where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But I know some people are more upset than others. But what were your thoughts behind this? Because I know you probably have a different stance than I do with the beta season.
I 100% do, because, well, not completely different, because I feel you were against it like this a little bit, but it doesn't bother you all that much. To me, this is crap. This is pure and utter crap. Um, you don't do betas and then have that permanently affect your skill rating going forward. Now, I know there's some exceptions. So like, what is the crappy MO?
Okay, so I just got a quick question, really quick. So if they didn't put the word beta in the competitive season, would that change your viewpoint? Was it just bad terminology? Because that's probably
they came out and they said that they were testing it. Mm-hmm. They were doing the beta. They were testing it. That does not denote that it should affect you going forward.
Okay.
And you nailed it on the head. It's not the fact that, you know what, if I could get past it if they just took the game as is and they did the beta and everyone kind of had to work their way out with that. It's the fact, like you said, they put in a new character who had not been tested outside of the PTR where it's not being tested.
Well,
people...
It was tested more than other iterations, but it's still a small degree of the player base.
You can't work out all the bugs without a bigger test. And that's why they took this to the beta live. So you have a character who hasn't fully been tested out in competitive, and you're making that character affect people's future SR. There's a reason they don't release the characters now directly live into competitive. But they did in this instance. Like, they 100% did it. If they're saying that the beta, comp is, gonna kind of help determine your SR going forward, then yeah, they released a new character live into competitive day one. Mm-hmm. And that is not cool, but that is not the idea. And another thing is they kind of used the explanation of, well, we had to use it because for future role lock, we had nothing to base you off of.
Right.
Yeah, so you didn't have anything to base it off of when the beta started, and you still place people. Like, we're used to things fluctuating, but not fluctuating when it's a beta, and you mislead us with explanations, and you don't tell us about any of it until it's basically over.
Just about it.
Like, this is just bad. This is just bad PR for them. Like, this could have, if they would have came out beforehand and said this will affect your SR rankings for role lock past the beta, perfectly fine with it. Mm-hmm. 100% fine with it. It's the fact that they held back that, and they knew it would be an issue if it got out. They could have not said anything, and nobody would have been the wiser. Mm-hmm. But they had to go out there and say it, and you had to know that was going to have backlash.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, to me, like, regardless of what they call the competitive season, if you're queuing for something that's competitive, that puts you in a mindset of you need to be taking that mode seriously. I can understand, like, people want to try out Sigma right out of the gate, but I don't agree with the fact that, Sigma should not have been in that competitive season at all. Like, I don't like that they put that there. But regardless of that, there were a lot of odd fluctuations with skill rating based on certain roles, and it didn't just impact, like, the lower ranks, it was all the way up to, Grandmaster. Like, I know there were times when, like, I think XQC placed, like, 4,300 on support, which he never plays, and he felt like he wasn't at that level. Maybe he'd been, like, Masters or something. But even if they didn't have that data, who's to say that anything would have changed the next time he would go out to do placements on that role? He probably would have been in that same exact situation. So it's just like, no matter what path that they took, it just feels like they would have ended up in the same destination. And it's a crappy spot either way, because no matter what sort of MMR has been thrown in, whether there's an MMR reset, there's always going to be this adjustment period when all is said and done. So I think next time if they do something this drastic, 100% do not put the word beta in. Like, because to me, right out of the gate, that was a major red flag.
Yes. A beta is you're testing it. It means the product is not finished, and they need people to test it out to see how things work. So, like, this is basically like saying, hey, I know you played all these comp games on the PTR. Those comp games are going to roll over to live. It's kind of what it is. Like, less drastic, but it's kind of got the same principle to it. So this was a crappy move on their part. I'm not a fan of them for doing this.
So outside of that, there has also been a little bit of backlash in regards to some recent comments made by one of our favorite trash talkers in the Overwatch League. That, of course, being Dogman.
Favorites? You really want to go with favorite on that one? Right?
In regards to trash talking,
there's
only so many, Ed. Like, but if I were to say favorite trash talker, it would not be Dogman. It would be Bumper.
Yeah. You continue on with the story because
okay. So this is one of those scenes where I know you and I are going to be in the same mindset, more than likely. So Dogman, in a nutshell, has never been one to shy away from talking and making comments. But there were a couple of recent post-game interview comments that has kind of drawn a little bit of criticism, either from, other teams or Stavin, or, things like that. So basically, Dogman used the post-game interview as a platform to take a shot at Dallas Fuel head coach Arrow when talking about the players that were selected for the United States World Cup team. We'll have more on that later. So basically, Dogman had expanded on some of his comments that he made to one of the Dallas Fuel reporters. And, it kind of goes into the Atlanta players that were part of the USA tryouts, whether it was from the main roster or even their academy team, which, did very well this year. And none of them made it past the first round of the trials. So basically, Dogman came out and he was saying that he thinks that Arrow is incompetent. So he said, so I think the competency of Team USA's head coach and the coaching staff wasn't very good this year. And then he had a follow-up saying, I think he's a nice guy. I just think he's incompetent both in his roster selection for Team USA and with his coaching of the Dallas Fuel this year. And of course, this caused kind of an uproar. I know the Game House had an article up fairly quickly about this since they were on hand. You had a ton of pro players and former pro players chiming in on this. I know Reinforce was calling Dogman out because Dogman in the past talked about how he had underperformed in the tryouts, and, he felt like he didn't deserve it, even himself. But, Ed, I don't understand why everyone's getting so upset about this. Dogman has been making comments like this since day one, since he first entered the league. And it doesn't always happen after they completely stomp a team like Dallas. It happens whether they win or lose. We've seen him calling out Jonak. Regardless of, NYXL just stop. I wouldn't say stop. Atlanta were their kryptonite, but regardless, everyone knows that Jonak is a better player than Dogman. But it's just part of the game. But everyone is just how can you make those comments? If Arrow comes out and says anything, that would just be unprofessional. And then everyone's well, you never hear pro players in other sports talking bad about other coaches, yada, yada, yada. There's been a number of things getting thrown out there.
Whoa. If anyone actually says that, you don't hear other pro players.
They don't watch sports.
Yeah, I'll line up a bunch of videotapes to send to you and be here's the clip, here's the clip, here's the clip, here's the clip, here's the clip.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I heard this on Plat Chat, and they nailed it perfectly. This is not trash talking.
Mm-hmm.
This is legit a player in the league giving his opinion on another person in the league. Is this any different than what they might say on this show, on Plat Chat, on whatever? No. We're fine to say stuff like that. He's just a player. Why can't a player say it? Like, he didn't say I haven't really heard anyone come out and tell him that he's wrong. That's another issue. Like, they're saying you shouldn't come out and say stuff like that. Nobody's coming out and saying you're wrong.
Yeah, like you've had like some of the I think it was Unco or AKM saying something back in response, but that was about it. Like, it's been pretty quiet from the fuel front, but like you would kind of expect like one of his own players to come out on the defense there, but you were absolutely right on that front.
Yeah, and he was giving an analysis. He put it very bluntly, but he was just kind of giving his analysis, and I have zero problem with that at all. Like, his trash talking can be a bit much. Like, when he stands up on stage and yells at the crowd, that can get to be a bit much. That is 100% different than what he did here.
Right.
Where he was just like, he's not a good coach. Plain and simple. Here's the thing. He is a bad coach. I'll say that. Because, let's be real, Team USA has not looked good. They didn't last year when Arrow was the coach. The Dallas Fuel are the Dallas Fuel. Like, we gave him credit last year for Stage 4. With Dallas.
Yeah, with limited resources and time.
But Dallas, and then you give him a whole offseason, and the team comes back and finishes the year as a bottom 3 team. Yes, he was great with Fusion University. To me, that screams nothing, because that talent on that team was so incredibly high that you didn't even need a coach, really.
Right, and there's also like a number of occasions when we see this in traditional sports too, when like an NCAA coach goes to the NFL, and he's like the new hotness, but then they kind of stumble out of the gates. Like, this is something that's actually pretty common across the board. Like, you're not guaranteed success just because you dominated the tier 2 scene of Overwatch.
Exactly, and like, should a play like I get people's argument with a player shouldn't be saying that about like a coach from another team. I do get that, but he wasn't saying anything that outlandish. Plain and simple. Like, if people want to argue with him on it, then Arrow needs to show proof that he can coach a good team on the pro level. And that has not occurred. So, I don't know. I have zero problem with what Dogman said. Probably could have put it less bluntly. But fine by me. Like, he did perfectly fine with it. I'm okay with it. He's going to get backlash, but he's embracing the backlash, which I found hilarious. Like, the whole clown thing was pretty funny. But, like, you know what? Whatever. I know he said he underperformed on tryouts. How do I put this right? Screw tryouts.
Well, I don't think, regardless of if he underperforms or not, that it discredits his opinion.
Yeah. It's like, here's the thing about tryouts. I'm just going to say this. You have an entire season of tape to look at for someone. And you're throwing that out the window to look at this 1 week of these guys playing together.
It was 4 weeks in this case for USA.
Still, throwing that out there, you know what you're getting with Dogman. And he's better than Sleepy. Like, let's just say that. He's better than Sleepy. And he's probably better than Ruckus. And sure, he may have had like a bad trial, but you know how he can play. And don't choose it just off those 4-week tryouts. So, I don't know. I think we're not going to hear much more about this after this week. I don't think. Unless somebody starts to rehash it, like another player brings it up or, talks down to Dogman. I don't think we're going to hear it that much.
Well, I will say there's still plenty of opportunities for Dogman with the playoffs coming up, especially after Atlanta finished in the top 6.
Yeah, I mean, Dogman's going to get a lot of possible trash talk in about the Dallas Fuel while they're at home doing nothing because they weren't coached into the playoffs. Just saying.
Yeah, so I feel like the easiest follow-up to do with this is let's talk about the United States World Cup team, since we waited all of this time to find out until August 26th when they made all the announcements who would be representing our country for the final 7. So it's worth noting that the United States were the last of the top 10 countries to release their finalized World Cup roster. So in regards to the tryout process for Team USA, there were 30 players invited to participate in a 4-week roll queue trial. So everyone knows about the disappointment from prior seasons. We've not made it past a round of 8, whether it was to the hands of South Korea, who have won literally every World Cup. And then, of course, last year we lost to the United Kingdom in what was a pretty big upset in a lot of people's eyes. That was unfortunate, so another first round out. I can't even say one and done, because they didn't even finish one win. But we've yet to advance. It's been a rough go. And as a reminder, World Cup all happens the week of BlizzCon, starting on Friday, November 1st, 2019. But who is on the World Cup team this year? So for the support line, we have from the San Francisco Shock, we have Moth for our main support. And then your favorite, your sole Houston Outlaws player, Ruckus. And just shaking his head and like, nope, not my team.
Nope. This is not my team. I mean, this is Ruckus is a product of we don't have the best flex supports out there.
No.
Plain and simple. Like, this is what the U.S. has come to, is we're forced to have Ruckus on the team for 4 World Cups or 3 World Cups in a row. Not working out that great for us. So, I fully expect we're going to be knocked out in the first round.
I want to see the bracket first before I make any hard takes.
I swear I saw something online where they released the divisions.
Did they?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Well,
So I'm just telling you this.
Okay.
They released 5 of the groups so far. 5 teams in the group so far. Because the top 5, so they have Canada, China, South Korea, France, and the U.S. Listed in group stages, so Group A and Group B.
Right, because they don't go through preliminaries.
Yep. So in Group A, we have United States, France, South Korea.
Okay.
And then the other 2 are on the other side so far. That's all they have announced.
Okay.
So we're not getting out of Group A. We know that for sure.
France is a maybe.
Well, there's still 2 other teams to go in Group A.
Right.
So who knows there? But it is 100% not going to be the United States that comes out of that group.
As the top seed, no.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
They should
will
put the
say-
UK in there. They need to put the UK in there because then they need to have like a redemption type situation going on.
Well, we'll see if they make it out of the prelims. So that's our support line. Moving on to our tank line, we have our known off-tank Space. He was the only off-tank to make the 12-man shortlist. And then we had 3 main tanks that had made that shortlist, and they went with the San Francisco Shock main tank Super. Now, I will say, the main tank discussion, so the options for the final 7 were Super, Fact Fiction, and Muma. So you're kind of, like, going off of synergy in either situation, because the US team is Shock, Outlaws, and Valiant, primarily. Either way. So regardless, you would have had, like, 2-2-2 kind of, like, split for the most part, because it is a 7-man roster. Like, I feel like, Super, at the start, he definitely had probably the biggest impact out of all of the tanks, without a shadow of a doubt. His Reinhardt is easily the best out of the lot, and, there's something to be said about, like, playing with your rivals on the same team, I would say. But in the current meta, like, we haven't really seen Super as much. So this is one that kind of raised a few eyebrows, but I don't think we'd be in a bad situation no matter who the pick was. But out of the 3 options that we had, where would you have put Super in that situation? Would he have been your first pick out of the 3?
See, and that's the thing, is if we're talking, if Reinhardt's going to be in the meta and we're going to get dual shields, then yes, Super is your pick. Because he is probably top 3 Reinhardts in the league. I don't think Fact Fiction really was an option here. I think it was down to Super or Muma. If you want more flexibility, you're obviously going to go Muma. Because you got Wrecking Ball, you have Winston, you have the Reinhardt, the Orisa. But if you're looking at no Wrecking Ball, no Monkey, and just Orisa and Reinhardt, I would say go with Super. I have 0 problem. Also, Space and Super are good friends. Like, Space, Super, and Sinatra are all very good friends with each other. So I'm sure that played a role in it. Like, you have a tank line that is just a group of friends that really enjoy playing with each other. That's, I'm fine with that. So I'm good with this. We'll see how it actually pans out.
Mm-hmm.
But if we see Reinhardt Sigma, then I can totally see this working.
Yeah, and it's weird too, because, like, it's not that we haven't really seen Super in Stage 4, we just haven't seen him as much, just because the Shock have opted more Orisa from their other tank option. But that being said, like, when we have seen Super come in, he has played really well, so it's really hard to compare, like, the trade-off between Muma and Super when one of them is playing every map, as opposed to playing just a little bit here and there. So it's kind of skewered everyone's opinion on the matter, so I know there are a lot of Outlaws loyalists who are a little bit upset on that front. But moving on...
They're always upset.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be a Texas fan. No matter what camp you choose, unfortunately.
Yeah, like, you have crappy coaches and no owners.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure they would take a crappy owner or a crappy coach in exchange.
It's weird, one team has no owner or didn't have an owner, the other one had a crappy coach.
And they did about the same.
Mm-hmm.
Strange how that happens. But anyways, moving on to the DPS line, we do have 3 DPS for Team USA this year, which is pretty consistent with what we're seeing from a lot of different teams out there. A lot of teams are opting for that extra flexibility on the DPS line. So our DPS has been kind of interesting. I know a lot of people are reading into one pick in particular, probably a little bit too much, as opposed to the other two. But our DPS we have from the Shock, Sinatraa. MVP candidate this year. Well, Sinatra's gonna win, let's just say it. Like, there's no way, just based on the percentages so far. From the Washington Justice, we have Corey. And then the third DPS pick was KSF from the Los Angeles Valiant. So, no hydration this year, which I'm kind of torn on this. Like, I know hydration has been putting in countless hours on Sigma. And he's been, like, the top-ranked Sigma for a while now on live. But I also don't want to read too much into that, knowing that, well, just because he's playing it doesn't mean he's practicing it for competitive, so to speak. So, but that being said, I will say, like, we've seen him more on Projectile, and it does give you it gives you another off-tank option, as opposed to KSF, who is either going to be playing as part of double hit scan with this roster alongside Corey, or we could see KSF move kind of back towards that projectile role, which he was known for before moving to the LA Valiants. That being said, though, I know hydration probably offers a little bit more in regards to flexibility, but I wasn't really upset. Was I surprised? Yes, that would not have been my pick. But a lot of teams or a lot of coaches have been expecting a double hit scan meta to surface. And Corey has definitely been a standout. KSF has definitely leveled up throughout the year. Whereas last year, a lot of us were kind of like writing him off based on the showings that he had with the Valiant. But, we're definitely seeing a different tune for him this year.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have preferred hydration over KSF as well. I think we both agree that Dante was the first odd man out. Mm-hmm. He brings the flexibility, but I don't think he was as skilled as the other players. So, like, I don't have a huge problem with this. KSF does bring some good, some sniper ability. That's a real word. Sniper ability.
Sniper ability?
Sniper ability.
Is that just one word?
No. Yeah, it's one word. Sniper ability. To the team, I wouldn't be surprised if we do get, KSF and Corey as our two starting DPS, and Sinatraa rides the bench and comes in when we need a Doomfist.
Here's the
thing.
Because
I know Sinatra's been playing some pretty darn good Doomfist.
Here's the thing. If Zenyatta sees even 1% of play, they bench Sinatraa, because he doesn't want to deal with the Discord orb. That's what it is. Like, Sinatra's going to be nowhere to be seen if they're Zen.
Sure.
He doesn't want to deal with that.
We'll go with that. He doesn't want to deal with that.
Old memes never die.
But, I mean, if we get dual sniper, I think they went the right route. Mm-hmm. Obviously. So maybe they're hoping that's it. I don't know. It could be weird. But yes, Spider, hydration, best Sigma, NA. Which is not saying much.
Since there's only one off-tank in North America. And it's Space, and he's on the team. Don't you know?
We have one off-tank in the U.S. So the other one would have been Blase. So our off-tank roles in the United States consist of Space.
What about FRD?
Plays off-tank. Oh, yeah, I forgot about FRD.
He didn't make it past the first round of trials.
Yes. So you have FRD, Space, and then 2 DPS players playing Flex Tank.
Well, there was also Hawk, but he also didn't make it past the first round.
Yeah, contenders.
Here's the thing for me. Like, this is why I like the KSF pick more so for a different reason. It's because it's just something different. I feel like if USA just came out and they stuck to their guns with the same roster, everyone would have been LOL incompetent Arrow, you know, just piling on Dogman with his comments, being like, oh great, here comes an early exit again. And what happens if we lose in the first round again? Like
so you saw what, Raucus, Sinatra, and I think it was Space all like tweeted out, third time's a charm. No, it's not. You sucked the previous 2 times. Third time's not a charm with your losing asses.
Here's the cold hard truth, Ed. You know why we are a top 10 ranked country in the World Cup?
It's like we're based in the United States or something.
It has nothing to do with the fact that we performed at BlizzCon. It's a fact that our ladder average SR is just better than other countries. That's the only reason.
Mean, that has to be it.
That's
just
the
wait till
only
we get
reason.
we get that elusive Switch, Nintendo Switch ladder SR progression will be that much better than everyone else. Especially EU. Suck it. Actually, no. I can't say that anymore. I am not allowed to say suck it, EU, because the EU knocked the US out of the World Cup. Thanks a lot, Raucus.
Yeah, see, like, if we didn't knock EU out entirely of, you know, the gauntlet, you know, that would be a different story. But, you know, they still have a spot, and that's HSL Esports. But here's the thing. The thing that I always go back to with the whole World Cup discussion is I look at the rankings that people do. And I can't tell you how many people, right, put Team USA as a second-ranked or the third-ranked country. And I just look at them, and I'm like,
what?
What team are you looking at? What is this based off of? Like, country size? What teams are currently playing on? Like, because we haven't gotten out of the first round, guys. Like, I don't mean to be a downer or anything, but everyone always tries to, like, make that spin of, like, oh, well, where's your national pride? It's not about that. It's about knowing where we actually rank against the field, because you're not going to rank them over South Korea. You're probably not going to rank them over China based off of their recent standouts. Canada is kind of a toss-up, and even Canada's performed better than us. So, like, there alone, there's 3 teams that are better than us, so maybe we can crack into the top 5. But
right.
Everyone put them second or third, I shake my head and just chuckle to myself.
Yeah. Just because we don't rank them as, like, the top team doesn't mean we're not going to cheer for them. It just means that we're realistic. Like,
it just means that we're going to cheer for them less.
Yeah, no. It's like, I'm still going to cheer for Team USA, but you know what? Browns fans cheered for the Browns knowing they suck.
Yeah. That's what we need. We need paper bags for BlizzCon.
Paper bags as soon as Team USA walks out. Oh.
We gotta figure it out. All right, we're good.
We'll have that right next to the giant Ed head that Ramses will be bringing.
That will also have a paper bag.
It will. Watch, we get matched against South Korea in round 1.
That would be our luck.
That would be hilarious. I would laugh so hard.
Or they'd be like, this seems like an easy match, and then it'll be another team that will upset us.
Yeah, it's like us versus... They'll be like, oh, we'll give them a semi-challenge, and they'll have us play France in round 1, and we get 4-0'd.
Mm-hmm.
Dang it. So, I don't know. The other thing when you're talking about the World Cup rankings, and I think we talked about this last week, people were putting out rankings, and we didn't even have a GD roster.
Right.
Like, how are you ranking teams when we don't have rosters? No.
Well, how can you sell tickets when you don't have a venue, Ed? Like, this is a perfect segue.
Someone has, like, it's those ultimate scams. It's like that person who sold 11 copies of the Mona Lisa to 11 different people.
Yeah.
As long as people pay for it, you don't need the end result.
So, anyways, tickets for the 2020 Overwatch League season went on sale earlier today. And as I mentioned, some teams out there haven't even chosen their home venues for the 2020 season as of yet. Now, one of those, Ed, in question, this is not going to surprise you at all, is the Boston Uprising. So Boston hosts 2 homestand events in 2020. One in April 25th and 26th. The other one happening in June 27th and 28th. And as of yesterday, there were 7 teams in total out of the 20 who had not made a venue announcement for the new year. That includes the Atlanta Reign, Boston Uprising, London Spitfire, LA Gladiators, LA Valiant, Seoul Dynasty, and the Shanghai Dragons. Now, I do want to note that for the EU teams, China, Korea, their tickets are going on sale at a later date. And for some reason, it's the same case with Washington. I don't understand the reason behind that. They were the only US team that didn't go on sale today. But, it's pretty funny. Teams have had all of this time having to, negotiate, what venue they're going to want to pick. I know the Valiant recently had a homestand event, so for them to be on the list is really weird. But a lot of people on social media today have been kind of complaining about the ticket costs. And everyone's well, when you factor in all of the travel costs, all the hotels, that's normal if you're traveling. But people are just looking at the cost for the actual tickets and just kind of scoffing at having to pay. I honestly don't even know how much they started. I haven't looked too much into it, but it's very comparable to what you would be paying for a concert. And we're not just talking about a one-day thing like a concert would be. This is a 2-day event.
I have zero problem with how much they're charging for this. You saw some were charging $60-$80 for an all-day event.
Right.
What do you do? What were you expecting? Were you expecting $20 tickets for 10 hours of entertainment?
Well, that's how it was at the LA arena.
Yeah, that's because all of them, the teams are located within 10 miles of that place. If there was only one arena or one NFL stadium, NFL ticket prices would go down. But that's not the case. You have these individual venues. First and foremost, Overwatch League is a business. They're not overcharging you. They're not. They're charging you the same price ticket as going to see an NBA game, NFL game, most Major League Baseball games.
Which are usually, 3 hours.
Yeah. Say. And you're getting 2 to 3 times more entertainment out of it. I'm not seeing the issue here. I am legit not seeing an issue here. So, suck it up, Buttercups. Deal with it. If they went over $100, maybe. $100 each day.
Yeah, for gen admission.
Yeah, for gen admission, then maybe, that's overpriced. $60-$70 is not overpriced. So, yeah. No. You're not getting any sympathy for me. Because you know me, I give a lot of sympathy out.
Yeah.
A lot of sympathy.
Yeah, almost as much as the free Kit Kats during the Kit Kat Revelry Week.
First off, hold on. It wasn't even normal Kit Kats.
No, that's
it was mint Kit Kats, and that's trash. You didn't even give them the good Kit Kats. You gave them the shit Kit Kats. You're a horrible Kit Kat. You're horrible. But it is interesting to know that some of these teams don't have venues yet.
Right.
That's troublesome. But you also run the thing of a lot of these arenas may be too small, maybe too big. It's a very distinct size venue that these teams are probably looking for.
Right, and not every sort of venue is going to be operated the same way for esports. Like, as well, let's use, like, the Rogers Arena, like the Titans home arena where the Canucks play, because it's a hockey arena. Obviously, they're not going to utilize the entirety of, like, the bowl aspect. It'll just be, probably half of the arena. Others have more, like, concert venues, like, kind of like stages, kind of like what we saw, like, with the Valiant homestand weekend. So it's just a matter of what the purpose of the venue is used for in regards to how they're going to utilize this space. Because not every team is going to go the same direction, but a lot of them do seem to be favoring these smaller venues that are more stage-based, so to speak.
Yeah, like, certain places will have arenas that fit this. Washington... Did you say... No, Washington just hasn't started selling tickets. Yeah. They're not one of the rumored ones, because Washington has, like, a perfect place to have it. Mm-hmm. Atlanta seems weird, but I get that they probably couldn't go back to the same arena they used for the homestand, because you're not going to get those size arenas to sell out the same way.
Right, for like a normal event. Now that it's going to be more regular, I should say.
The fact that LA hasn't announced it, that's... Does it make you think that they might play some at the Blizzard Arena?
I would not be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah. You know who does have space for esports arenas?
Chicago.
Chicago does. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
DX.
Maybe 2 years from now.
Throwing that one out there. Mm-hmm. But it's weird. Congratulations to all the people who can actually go. It's awesome. It's also a little bit weird that they released them to purchase a year in advance. Like, this season's not even over, and they're like, buy tickets for next season.
See, like, here's the thing. They knew that people were going to complain. So they're like, okay, guys, we're going to give you as much leeway as possible to save up that $70 for the ticket cost to ensure that you can afford it.
See, there you go. It's kind of like the new Diablo game. They're giving people a good
year and a half to go buy a phone.
Year and a half to go have a phone. See, Blizzard, they're smart like that. So, yeah, it's cool. I mean, maybe this does increase the likelihood of me going to a game somewhere, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have to just go to LA. I can go to Orlando or Miami
or Shanghai.
Probably not Shanghai.
Oh.
Going out on a limb there. But, even Boston, New York, not going to Houston or Dallas, I'd probably get shot on sight by a Houston or Outlaw fan. But, maybe even Toronto.
The Midwest location.
Yeah, the Midwest location in Canada. But, well, wait, no. I'm a little skeptical of traveling outside of the country to go to an Overwatch League game. I'm feeling they won't let me back in. Like, where were you? I was watching esports. You're not allowed back.
What's in esport?
Yeah, well, this will be more to come. I'm sure Boston and all them will announce it fairly soon.
Maybe. Who knows? But anyways, let's take a closer look at the team travel and plans for 2020. And I know Eric, who is the set guy over at Upcomer, basically like broke down the schedule in regards to the travel to seeing like which teams were going to be traveling the most. And there are some pretty interesting things about this. So for starters, the Atlantic South Division travels the least, as they do have the top 5 spots, since none of them are having to go to Asia. And, you know, since Washington is hosting 5 homestand events throughout the 2020 season, they're going to be kind of like a central location. So they're actually the team that will be traveling the least out of the 20 Overwatch League teams. Now, that being said, EU kind of gets the shaft in this case, since they only have 2 franchises. So, you know, Paris, London definitely got impacted the most in regards to travel. But it does lead into an interesting discussion of, well, where are teams going to be based out of in regards to trying to save travel costs? So, obviously, like, if you are, you know, staying in, you know, EU a lot, it wouldn't really make sense for you to stay in EU full-time. Maybe you just want to stay on, like, the East Coast. That way, you know, you can get, more like flights out of major airports, you know, things like that, because it's not a requirement for a team to be based out of the city that is their franchise city. So we could see some like team operations posted in different locations as opposed to just being all based in LA at this point. So are there any teams out there that you feel like could benefit from basing out of a different location from their franchise city?
Well, both EU teams, obviously, are the first ones to come to mind. I don't know if... See, I want to say Boston could benefit from it, as weird as that sounds, but they traveled the second most.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, they're not in the prime location for their whatever, where they're going to play, but that's not guaranteed it's going to be the same way the next year. So I think London and Paris definitely could relocate, or at least be based out of a different city. But even then, that's super, super shady to do. So, like, let's take traditional sports into account here. For the Green Bay Packers, we have the Green Bay Packers. What if none of the Packers lived there and the organization was based out of Chicago? Yeah,
then I'd be seeing way too much Packers gear in Chicago.
Yeah, but like you wouldn't like it'd be just like it is now, except that it'd be a little bit more of a dagger.
Mm-hmm.
Like now in like you know, Hanzo and stuff like that, like you have these big fan bases waiting the arrival. Well, now they would have these fan bases and the team will not be arriving. They're just going to keep the name and not live there. Like, that's just not... I don't think that's an option. That would be a PR nightmare.
Right, and it's important to note, like, the localization is a huge aspect of the league, and you want your teams there to help build that market in their respective home cities.
Exactly. So I don't think any teams are going to do this. One thing that you could start seeing is these bigger teams, or the teams that have to travel more, invest more in traveling. Like, you know, let's say, like, you look at the Justice. Like, they traveled the least, obviously. Maybe they're not chartering private planes. Yeah, you know, I'm not saying they're all going to charter private planes, but they could fly coach to New York. Who gives two craps? But if you're a team like London or Paris, maybe you do charter a plane for some of these long flights so the team can be more comfortable, be more relaxed, like have less jet lag, stuff like that. Like increase the comfort level and like ease the stress of traveling on these planes.
So, how long before we get the official airline of the Overwatch League?
It will happen. 100% it will happen. The problem is, I mean, it would have to probably be Delta. I would assume it'd be Delta. Because you got to think international flights, too.
Right.
Southwest isn't as international as Delta. And Delta is based out of Atlanta. Hello, Atlanta Rain. How you doing? So you could definitely have that. But then you also have to take into account a lot of these teams have the organizations may not have a crap load of money. And I am 100% like, this is getting a little technical here, but there was an article recently in, I believe it was USA Today, listing the Power 5 football conferences in college football and how much they spend in recruiting. So they listed them all, and teams like Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, generally always a good team in college football. We do the Rose Bowl, we pump out fat offensive linemen and running backs left and right. They spend the least amount of money in the past 3 years, each year, on recruiting. They spend a total of $350,000 a year. Total. And that includes air, hotels, traveling, food, bringing people in, bringing their families in, showing them around, all that stuff. But the reason that they can make it happen like that is their donors will just volunteer their private jets.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll give Wisconsin, be like, hey, take our private jet and fly to New York for a day and then fly back. That's fine. A lot of these organizations, they don't have the money for this, but the people that back them or have a vested interest in them do. And it would not cost them all that much money to be like, sure, I'm not using my jet for the next 4 days. Why? You guys can use my jet. And then the team doesn't have to pay for that. Like, you could start to see stuff like that. Because who doesn't want to see gesture? Like, be the first person when they have that little, like, the stairs slowly open from the private jet onto the runway, and gestures just standing there doing something, swaggy. And, and stuff like that. So you could start seeing stuff like that. But this will be tricky. Atlanta has it probably. Atlanta, New York, and the LA teams have it the easiest.
Right.
As far as teams in the US.
Because there's more connections.
Yeah, they're hubs. So, sorry, Vancouver. You're SOL a lot. You're not going to get a lot of direct flights out of Vancouver to most cities.
Yeah. So outside of that, of course, playoffs are right around the corner. We do know who our top 6 teams are, obviously with the final 2 spots being determined by the play-in tournament. So in regards to the playoff seeding, in first we have the Vancouver Titans. Second was wrapped up by New York Excelsior by winning a crappier division. They would not be second otherwise. Third is the San Francisco Shock. We got the Hangzhou Spark in at 4th. The LA Gliders at 5th. And then after going 2-0 this past week, we have the Atlanta Reign locking up the 6th seed. So, as the top seeds, you have the Titans and the Excelsior. They will await the winners from the play-in tournament for the first round of the playoffs. Now, we do have the map pool for the playoffs that were already decided, and there are 12 maps in total for the playoff pool. So for Control, we have Lijiang Tower, Busan, and Ilios. For Assault, we have Hanamura, Horizon Lunar Colony, and Temple of Anubis. Hybrid maps being King's Row, Eichenwald, and Numbani. And then finally, we have our escort maps of Watchpoint Gibraltar, Rialto, and Dorado. Now, Ed, I know there are definitely maps that we both love and hate to see. I am very happy to see King's Row is sticking true. We got the OG map always in there. But any other standouts to you in regards to the playoff map pool that you're excited to see?
Well, one thing that sticks out to me that we won't see...
Paris.
Paris will not be there. So...
That is a win for everyone.
Yeah, praise be to Jeebus on that one. I like all the Assault maps. I'm a fan of Hanamura, Horizon, and Anubis. As cheesy as Anubis can be, I still like it. It still gives us great. It gives us great point A matches. Point B less so, but point A matches. Anubis is great at that. Busan is probably my second favorite behind King's Row. I really like Busan. And I think it was one of their better maps that they've come up with. I like the new maps, so I'm very excited to see that. I don't like Rialto. I don't like Dorado. I don't like the escort maps. Like any of them. That's just me. I don't know, but I think King's Road needs to be a staple in there at all times. Like, that just has to always be there.
If it's not there, then there is no competitive integrity in Overwatch.
Exactly. Like, they did very good on the Assault and Hybrid maps. I like King's Row, Eichenwald, and Numbani. Those are three good maps. So... well, we shall see, but it's definitely going to be an interesting one.
I just want to see more defensive Pharah on Numbani, and I will be happy.
That would be nice. Yeah, these maps definitely lead us towards interesting comps on different maps. Which is something you want. You don't want the same stale meta. You don't want GOATS 2.0 with May and Reaper all the time, because let's be real, that's kind of boring. So yeah, these should be good maps. I'm excited for the postseason to start.
Can't believe we're already at that point. Like, this year's kind of like flown by.
Yes and no. Like, it's still a super long season.
Yeah.
Like, stage 1, I mean, if you think about it, we've had 6 months of Overwatch already? Over 6 months of Overwatch. Because we started, so...
I guess it's just... my view differs only because, like, I know we're gonna have, like, a month drought. Until we get to, like, the gauntlet.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where you have the 6-month season, you need some downtime. This isn't PGA. For those who don't know, the PGA season is 11 and a half months long. They get one or 2 weeks off.
I thought I would have been like, there's a season, and then that's like when you just fall asleep because it's PGA.
but what about my fantasy golf team?
I don't know, Ed. What about your fantasy golf team?
I have to start prepping for my fantasy golf draft. That's got to be coming up soon.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I don't know, because I don't watch golf. But anyways,
Lame.
With the playoffs and the play-ins, we do know that all of that will be on patch 1.39. Of course, that was announced a while ago, but that does include Sigma, the cost increase for all global ultimates. Same with the Brig rework. And of course, there were a number of other balance changes that are on live as well that we will be seeing. So, we'll see what sort of meta shifts we will see for the postseason. But it does lead into a discussion of, well, can being in the play-in tournament offer advantages even though you are not guaranteed a spot in the playoffs, just because you have more time to get yourself acquainted or just get yourself in the rhythm with the new meta in actual matches as opposed to a practice environment.
Yeah, it's going to be... who was it? I need to bring it up real quick. I brought it up in Discord about somebody who brought up a... Hold on. Scroll real quick. Who is basically... Sinatra. So Sinatra on his stream was like, Sigma will be a 100% pick rate in the playoffs.
So Symmetra will be 100% then.
But he goes on to say, but I haven't screamed with it at all yet. So, Sigma, 100% pick rate without any screaming. That doesn't seem real. Just throwing that up there.
I mean, to me, that doesn't tell us anything just because it's not in that environment.
Yeah. It's just, we won't know the meta or what we'll see until the first playoff game. Like, we won't know what we'll actually see. I'm interested. We could see Sigma. We could not see Sigma. But a lot of these teams that are outside of the top 6 or inside the top 6 have a definite advantage.
Right.
Because they get to see...
Like, we know, like, for example, Atlanta, even going into this past week, decided not to practice on the patch that we're currently on, instead to opt to practice on the Sigma patch for the playoffs. And sure enough, they had an easy schedule. Yes, they beat Dallas, they beat Boston, they got their top 6, and now they're more prepped for the playoffs, and Sigma in particular.
Yeah, and like these teams, the top 6, get to see if Sigma actually is getting played. Because yes, they may be practicing it, and in case shit happens, we're playing Sigma. But they get a full week of seeing these teams play against each other, either with or without Sigma, while they get to prepare for a week for playing against Sigma or not. Because we're past the point of teams not showing their hands. Like, these play-in teams aren't hiding strategies. They're going to go all out to try and make it in. So the best possible comps that they can play, they will be playing. And the top 6 get an extra week to see how that actually goes. It's a rather huge advantage. And that's why Atlanta really lucked out. And the Spitfire kind of got shat on. Like, they just last second, 1 map difference or whatever it was. Because if they would have gone like 3-1 or something like that, they wouldn't have made it. But I'm just waiting for see what goes on. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So before we start talking about the play-in, who's in, what matches we are going to see, and making our predictions, let's quickly do a recap of what we saw in Stage 4, week number 5. So for starters, the biggest storyline was the LA Valiant, being the host team, lost both to the LA Gladiators and the San Francisco Shock during their homestand. So with that, they failed to reach the play-in tournament. So it is the Chengdu Hunters who secured that 12th seed for the play-in. The Valiant needed to take 1 win out of the 2. That did not happen, and they're the only team that has hosted to lose both of their games. So we didn't see like the level up, the power up for the home team. Went to the other California teams. It was definitely a rough go of things, but if you're the Hunters, regardless of how it happened, you're happy to be there, but you don't like that it had to come down to something like that. You'd rather have destiny in your control as opposed to trying to weasel your way in by having someone else shit the bed.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, yes, the Valiant did not win anything. They probably also had the hardest matchups of any homestand team.
Mm-hmm. This is also true.
But they also got fucking wrecked.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't like, hey, this is close. No, you got stumped. You lost 3-1 in Boro. You didn't even make it a game. So yeah, no, Valiant, the Valiant didn't look bad. That's the thing. They just played way better teams. Like, they played 2 of the top 5 teams in the league. And you need to win one of those. Now, granted, this all could have been avoided if Houston didn't suck it up last week and lose to the Chengdu Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
So, thanks a lot, Houston. Everything can come back to blaming Houston. But yeah, it sucks. The only thing is they lost to the Gladiators, and it was also Gladiators' home game.
It was still pretty split for an LA game.
Yeah, it was still split. It's just like it's like a home game, but it's not like they're split by different sides of the city, like Chicago, North Side Cubs, South Side White Sox. Then you have New York, you have the Mets, and you have, the Yankees. It's different sides of the city. LA is just, they both play in the same arena.
Yeah, where it's like when the Cubs travel to Milwaukee. it still honestly feels like a home game. It's still pretty split, but the Cubs do.
Yeah, I mean it's only an hour and a half away from Wrigley Field. It's crazy, but if the Cubs and the White Sox played in the same stadium, you're not having a divided fan base, or one side of the city will be one side and one side of the city will be the other. It's kind of all intermingled. So yeah, it was a home game for both the Gladiators and the Valiant. The Gladiators just didn't get the fireworks and the smoke and the shitty Kit Kats, but they got the win. That's really all that matters.
And I have to say, I was upset with the LA crowd over one thing. So
they didn't boo.
Yeah, during the Dallas homestand, right? The Valiant got booed so hard. We did not get that when Dallas played. And that was upsetting to me. You did hear some boos as I knocked over my mic a couple seconds ago. But I was expecting them to be a lot louder than what they were, and it didn't happen. So shame on you, LA.
Yeah. Also, let's drop the stupid California Cup thing.
Especially when it's always going to belong to the Shock.
I get it if you want to have a special rivalry between the Gladiators and the Valiant. Don't try and include San Francisco in this crap. No, don't have the California Cup. You all literally play in the same arena. So, just stop it. Just stop it.
Well, speaking of the Shock, we did get to see some games between the Shock, Titans, and New York Excelsior. And I'm gonna air quote this, Ed, because I know you and I are both in the same camp that this isn't true anymore. The Elite Three.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, the Titans got taken to map 5s in both situations, and they ended up going 1-1. They beat the New York Excelsior, lost to the San Francisco Shock, but man, that Shock Titans game, regardless of what little was on the line, still delivered. I know I was a little worried, okay, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna rely a lot on substitutes? That ended up being the case, but I wouldn't say that it deterred from the overall quality of the match. So, we saw the Titans coming out, they played Repel and Slime, And I was like, oh no. Like, I started Twilight in my fantasy team. I was like, they can't do this to me. Sure enough, the Titans, they lose the first two. We come out, and Twilight's in for map 3. I was like, okay, I can get some points. Better than a goose egg. He's in for map 4. Alright, feeling better. Then it goes to a 5th map, and I was like, alright, 3 maps out of someone that didn't start the series. I cannot be happier. But there were a lot of substitutions on both sides of the field, and, I'd like to see that. We got to see everyone getting some stage time. We saw Nevix get into play for the Shock after him getting benched for a while. We got to see pretty much all of the players, which is nice to see, even though, like, the map 4 discussion about whether or not, like, it causes any impact or not, which it doesn't in most situations, hasn't really affected any seasons or anything like that. You at least like to see the faces of your franchises compete in the last opportunity that they can have when the stakes aren't at their highest. So I was happy to see the bench players coming in and didn't really take away from the overall strengths of the team too much. And you know what? For the Titans to go 1-1, I will take that. But Shock Titans is still without a doubt the best one-on-one match that we have in the Overwatch League at this point.
Oh, 100%. Like, they both had nothing to play for, but they're playing for pride against the other top team.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the Titans went to 5 maps against the Shock, 5 maps against New York. But both games were night and day different from each other. Because you could tell against New York, they didn't really give 2 craps. They weren't trying as hard. They were having more fun. They were just putzing around. But against the Shock, they actually viewed the Shock as competition and wanted to keep that competition going. But they probably don't look at the New York Excelsior as competition at this point.
Right. Not in the same
Rightfully
way.
so. Yeah, not in the same way. And, like, the way New York's been playing, a lot of people shouldn't be looking at them as competition. But it lived up to what we expected when they were talking about this specific matchup in stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, the only time they play each other, in the regular season is the last week of the year, and so on and so forth. And it lived up to it. It was a pretty darn good match. I mean, you can't say that about any other match that was played this weekend. There were no other good matchups. So at least we got one good matchup. And you know what? It was the 2 best teams.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I will say across the board, I feel like LA did a pretty good job as, let's just say the Valiant, as, like, the host city. They had a lot of stuff going on for everything that I saw. Like, they were giving out, like, custom trading cards for Upper Deck, where you could actually get yourself as a trading card. So I've seen those all over Twitter, which was pretty cool. Obviously, they had, like, the dunk tank, so anytime a team lost, their super fan got dunked, and, they had one of the players from the winning team getting to pull the lever that drops them into the water.
Yeah, which whatever. They get dropped in the water, but do you know what each one of them received?
Kit Kats.
For a year. What the hell? Unless it's the mint ones, and then,
Then it's no big deal, because it's the mint ones.
Yeah, then it sucks. I don't know. They did this was probably the best homestand in regards to the extra stuff that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
We got...
Okay, there's one exception to this. Outside of the Valiant, flubbing one of their own player names on one of the menus because they couldn't spell Kareev. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if that was, like, from the arena or something nearby, but I think they put, like, Carvey. So there was that.
I mean, even to the watch point, like, being outside.
Right.
That was pretty awesome. We didn't get anything stupid like Reinhardt races.
We did see a giant Reinhardt, though.
Yes, but they weren't racing.
Well, there's only one.
They did have Kit Kat Thunder Sticks.
They did not.
Yes, they did.
Or maybe I just
Not
wasn't paying
shaped
attention.
like Kit Kats.
That's what I mean. They weren't actual Kit Kats. They were themed.
Oh, yes, they were not actual
They had, like,
Kit
the
Kats.
logo, but they weren't actual shapes of Kit Kats.
It was a successful homestand. But, alright, take away the dunk contest or the dunk tanks. This is kind of what I expect most homestands to be like.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't over the top like it was at Dallas or Atlanta. This was more brought down to earth. This is what we're going to do for a home team. You know, it's going to be heavy in favor of the home team. They're going to get this big announcement.
And then they're going to lose 2 games.
The team will get brought up on stage, and yeah, the crowd will be behind them, but not like, oh my God, we're never going to see these teams again type of situation. And, you know, this was a more normal homestand in my mind. With shitty mint Kit Kats. Just no. Hate mint and chocolate.
Not a fan?
Hate it. I hate mint in general.
Oh, okay, that explains it.
Yeah. So it's really a mint thing. It's not mint in chocolate.
So basically,
mint
like,
and everything.
it doesn't matter if you cut something else into it. At the end of the day, it's still mint.
Yeah, I mean, I will have an occasional mint julep, though.
Yeah.
But that's only for the Derby.
That's only a special occasion.
Yeah, that's one day a year. I might have 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or more, depending on what I had before the mint julep.
And how good or bad your horse is doing.
Oh, I don't gamble on the Derby.
Ah, okay.
That's like the one thing I refuse to gamble on. I'm just like, this is stupid. I'm like, after, well, all right, this is Debbie Downer situation. After a few years ago when they shot a horse during the Derby, at the end of the Derby, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna support this. They literally just shot a horse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go ahead and not spend money on this. I'll drink, but I won't bet on it.
So on that note, let's talk about the play-in tournament, which is happening this weekend. So who all is competing in the play-in tournament to lock up those final 2 playoff spots? So we'll go from top to bottom. The 7th seed being the London Spitfire, who got the short end of the deal because of Atlanta going 2-0 and only dropping like 1 map this past week. In 8th, we have the Seoul Dynasty. So those are your 2 teams who are awaiting their opponent in that second round. So moving on to 9th seed, we have the Guangzhou Charge. 10th seed, we have the Philadelphia Fusion. 11th, Shanghai Dragons. And then securing that 12th slot by the Valiant Shit in the Bed, you have the Chengdu Hunters. So that gives us the Guangzhou Charge versus the Chengdu Hunters. So a battle of the Pacific. And then we have Philadelphia Fusion versus the Shanghai Dragons. And then, of course, we have London. In the next round, they will face whoever is the lowest remaining seed, with the Dynasty facing the highest remaining seed. Now, I do want to point out, guys, that there is a bracket tool for the Overwatch League playoffs that, you can fill out, and it, updates as you go. So I definitely recommend you guys check that out. I will post that in the Twitch chat, and I'll also have it in the show notes. So definitely check that out. Screen grab bits, show us what your brackets are. But Ed, I have to say, there is one match in particular that I was just like, literally my notes, and this is legit. I have one line, and it's no, just no, ... And that's Philly versus Shanghai. I cannot think of a match that I am less excited about when it comes to playoff potential. Because for one, you have Shanghai, who are coming off of a stage where they went 1-6. They're basically limping into the play-in tournament. And they only had more map wins than the two teams that went 0-7 in Stage 4. That would be Dallas Fuel and the Boston Uprising. You know, we've talked about the Dragons' DPS line issues, where they just haven't been as effective in the current meta. And on the other hand, you have Philadelphia, who has been fairly average in Stage 4. This is a team that continues to kind of, like, live and die by how their DPS is doing, and it's so hard to measure any sense of consistency with EQO and Carpe. And they've kind of lost that clutch factor that really defined them during the inaugural season. So, when I look at this match, it's just like, I honestly don't know what to think of it. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, you have to favor Philadelphia, if only due to the recent happenings with the Dragons. But these are teams that just have not looked that good as of late. But I feel like Philly is going to put themselves into a position where they're going to look to compete in front of their home crowd. But I don't think Philly will actually make it to the top 8.
No. I'm with you on that. Nobody wins by the Fusion and Dragons playing each other. It's easily the worst matchup out there that we'll probably see at all during this, with the exception of possibly, depending on who makes it through and plays New York Excelsior in the actual playoffs. But yeah, like I do see the Fusion beating the Dragons, but that's a coin flip. Yeah, that's a coin flip at this point, and you know they would easily get knocked out in the next round.
Yeah, I have Philly 4-2 over the Dragons, because those are first to 4.
Yep, and then they would, if they win, and the Hunt and the Charge, which I think everyone is predicting will win, Philly would play Spitfire in the next round, and they're not beating the Spitfire. Let's just say that right now. The Spitfire.
I will tell you, Ed, my notes for London versus Philly. Yikes.
I'm not gonna read too much into the scrimbucks for London, but one thing that I'm not gonna read into the scrimbucks for London, but I will read into the just logic with Philadelphia Fusion is Poco. So we all know Sato. Sato is probably the weak point on this team. It's just not that good of a tank. Poco is a good diva player, but what if they don't need diva? What if if diva's not in the meta? Then you have Poco on, Sigma or something like that, and it's just like, well, probably not that good. So you have a weak tank line, and then Carpe and EQO, while they have the skill, they're not meshing, and it's just overall just not their time. We'll get a rematch of last year's grand finals in the play-ins.
Yeah, just to make the playoffs, which would be a really odd situation. And it tells you just how much better the competition was this year. But looking at that other first-round match, we have the Charge going up against the Hunters. Now, these two teams have faced each other twice so far this year, and are currently 1-1 in the overall series. Most recently, they played in Stage 3, and Guangzhou took that one. But both of them were coming off of winning stages in Stage 4. You had the Charge, who went 6-1. Hunters went 4-3. And, the Charge in that stage, they were the first team to sweep New York. They also picked up 3 wins over some of the other playoff teams in, I should say play-in and playoffs. So they beat the Fusion, they beat Spark, and they beat the Dynasty. Although with, Hunters, they had to kind of, rely on the Valiant to lose both of their matches during their homestand week. But I feel like the Charge right now, outside of Atlanta, these are the two teams that have that I don't want to say the underdog aspect, just because they've already toppled some of the giants so far this season. So I don't want to drive that narrative, but these are teams that have kind of had this advantage over these top teams. So they're kind of already in the head of the elite teams in the league so far. And you look at the Charge, and you look at the emergence of Nero on DPS, who's been an absolute superstar. Happy has been one of the most consistent Widowmakers in the league. And should we go into this double hit scan meta, which a lot of coaches are predicting, I honestly can't think of a better Hanzo Widow combination than Happy and Nero at this point. And you kind of have to go with the hot hand in this case. The Hunters, they are a team that are either really good or really bad, and the Charge haven't been a team that have experienced those inconsistencies here as of late, so I'm really expecting the Charge to come out swinging. I will probably give the Hunters a map, but I'm expecting Charge to advance with a 4-1 win to go on to face the Dynasty, which, out of all of the possibilities, to me will be the closest match of the play-in tournament.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think everyone knows, the Charge did not do great in the first two stages, and that's the only reason they're not higher on this list.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone can kind of agree they're better than the 9 seed at this present moment.
Yes.
So I think you got the best, maybe not the best team in the play-in at number 9, but one of the top 2. I'd say London and the Charge are the top 2 teams in the play-in right now. But yeah, it's going to be, when they win and they play Seoul, that's going to be the best match. Because whoever wins the Dragons Fusion game plays London. Those are just 2 not good games. So I completely agree. 4-1 for me. I mean, there's a shot at a 4-0 here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real. The Hunters have not looked that good. Everyone loves the Hunters, but they just haven't looked that good.
I feel like everyone loved them because they were the first to kind of choose that path in regards to the damage dealers.
They became the fan favorite, and everyone loved them, and then everyone else started playing DPS, and then they kind of fell by the wayside, skill-wise. So we'll see, but I think the first round of the play-in is pretty straightforward.
So that would give us in our bracket London, Philly, and then Seoul, Guangzhou. Spitfire, I'm expecting to do fairly well against Philadelphia. But those are both teams that have had their fair share of inconsistencies, and London tends to show up when the chips are all pushed in, more so than Philly. I feel like Philly, they're not going to make it to the playoffs. I would expect that one to be a little bit closer than Philly's prior game, but I would expect Spitfire to take that one 4-2. But really, it's the Charge versus Dynasty potential matchup that has me really intrigued, because these are, again, teams that have faced each other twice this season. They've even played this stage when it went to a 5th map, and the Charge ended up picking up that win, but they're tied overall at 1 apiece. And when you look at these teams on paper across the board, they have been fairly even. I know the Charge have had a better record overall when we're looking at the Assault maps in the current map pool, but Seoul has fared better on both Hybrid and Escort, with control maps being pretty split between the two. So when you look at the maps, Seoul probably has a slight edge, but Seoul are also a team who have started to look a little less stellar when it comes to the DPS mirrors. We've seen them moving things around a little bit. They kind of started with Fitz really early on. They've been bringing in Fleta as of late. And it's been a while since we've really seen a Fleta deadlift, as they've dubbed it, from Fleta. And that does make me very nervous. I can see that, like, in a situation where Seoul comes out, they pick up the win on control, and then they have a favorable match or map type in the second one. Like, if Seoul goes up 2-0, I firmly stand behind Seoul will win it. If they don't do that, Guangzhou should take this, but I'm expecting this one to be very close. I'll expect it to go probably to 7 maps, but I will say that Charge will go out on top. I don't think Dynasty match up DPS to DPS, and the Charge frontline is criminally underrated at this point, but, you know, the Dynasty, that's probably their biggest strength. So that could be a wash, potentially, but it's going to be a very good series across the board, but I want to see whether or not the Dynasty DPS are going to be able to match up to both Nero and Happy after knowing that we've seen other Widows and Hanzos kind of getting in the head of Seoul in Stage 4.
Yeah, and we're not, because we are going along, we say that, what was this, 75 episodes in a row now. I'm just going to say I 100% agree with everything you just said, and I think we're both on board for the exact same thing. Like, it's probably going to be Spitfire and Charge that are going to win, but the Charge and the Dynasty are going to be a close matchup. The DPS lineup for the Charge is far and away better, I think, than the who knows who's going to actually even play DPS for Seoul. Again, if you say
if there's one guarantee, it's not Munchkin.
Yes, exactly. We don't even know who the DPS is going to be. So, like, if you don't even know who's going to play DPS for Seoul, you can't compare them against the Charge DPS. But the tank line probably goes to Seoul. Support probably fairly close. So it's going to be close, but I think the Charge pulled this up. And then the two teams to make it into the playoffs from the play-in will be the Spitfire and the Charge.
In which case, the Titans would face the Charge, since they would get the lower seed in this case, and then New York would get London for the actual playoffs, which would be exciting.
Well, exciting if you're a London fan, because you're gonna win it.
Okay, so do New York go 0-2?
Yes. So here's the reason I do this, and we're gonna get into this a little bit, but okay. So the way I have it is they play the Spitfire in round 1, and I say they lose to the Spitfire. What will happen then is they will face off against probably it would be the Atlanta Reign.
Yeah, that's what I have in my bracket.
I had to. I'm just trying to think of a different scenario of where someone else could get in there and face them, but I don't think there is.
Well, Excelsior would either face the Reign or the Shock, depending on whoever loses that match.
Yeah, and I don't see the Reign or the Shock losing to New York. So I think New York is out after 2 matches.
But how crazy would it be if the only win New York gets over Atlanta is in the playoffs? Like, that would be a weird story. After they lost the first 2 series against them.
Yeah, it would be hilarious.
It would be.
It would be, but I just don't see it happening. I really don't. I think New York has not looked even remotely good.
I will say, like, Flower did have a better showing this past week, but it's so hard to kind of, like, erase the previous, like, 4 weeks of the stage to suddenly, like, have the wool pulled over my eyes, you know? But next week, we'll definitely share, like, our full bracket breakdown, including the winner's bracket and the lower bracket all the way leading up to the grand finals. But with that being said, guys, we are going to close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, the best thing to do is to go leave us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. Obviously, iTunes is at the forefront of all the podcast apps, so those would be preferred. Any sort of feedback or constructive criticism is always welcome, just because that will offer us insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for you. If you would like to find additional Overwatch-related content, we do have Overwatch Recall, that is our podcast directory. And then every Sunday, and sometimes on Monday, we do the Weekly Recall, where we have a listing of all the prior week's episodes from the podcast out there. So to find out more info, be sure to follow Overwatch Recall on Twitter at OWRecall. Now, if you would like to support our podcast network, you can do so a couple of different ways. We do stream pretty regularly on Twitch, so any sort of Twitch Prime subs are greatly appreciated. Normal subs work too. I'm pretty sure September is coming back on Twitch, so they should be discounted next month, so even more reason next week to subscribe. But we do also have a Patreon page where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month, and more info can be found at patreon.com/OWL Network. So you too can join the likes of our Master and above patrons, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Josabal, Owl, and Kesha in helping our network grow. But Ed, of course, we have a plethora of ways how our listeners can get a hold of us over on the social medias. So why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that?
All right. Well, you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website, so definitely come check stuff out over there, and that's at owlnshow.com. We do have a YouTube channel where we post all our videos on. That is youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord, so come join us over there for all our fun discussions at discord.me/OWLNshow. We are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. We do podcast or stream pretty regularly. The Overwatch League Network normally airs Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. It will be airing tomorrow.
That would be Thursday
this week, because they just couldn't record this past Monday. Then we have OWL by the Numbers airing Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific. And we have this show, Heroes Never Die, which airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, when available, will run on a flex schedule, so be sure to follow us to be notified when we go live. These will probably not be Overwatch streams. These will probably be Warcraft streams.
Well, I mean, tomorrow it's technically going to be Overwatch League Network. Whether or not Spider is going to stream before or after, I'm not sure, but I would not count on it this week.
Mm-hmm. So definitely just tune into our Discord, follow us on Twitter, and you'll be able to keep up with all of that. As Totem had said, we do have our Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network, so come with it if you want to help us out even further. And then you can contact me personally on Twitter at Edanar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. So follow me over there and have my rambles and shenanigans and cheekery and
Talk
all
about
that fun stuff.
All of the announcements from Disney over the past week.
Oh, Disney, I love you.
Like, to be honest, Ed, I'm still trying to get caught up on the announcements, because it
Oh,
was
God.
just like, it was a floodgate of information all at once, and it was great. But as for myself, you can find me on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. But just as a reminder, we are recording Overwatch League Network on Thursday this week. That is tomorrow. So expect that to hit the RSS feed on Friday. But with that being said, guys, I do want to thank everyone again for hanging out with us tonight on another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 175. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edanar, and we hope to see you guys back tomorrow for our next episode of Overwatch League Network, when I try to say nicer things about the Philadelphia matches. But no guarantees.
No promises. No promises.
No promises, guys. Take care.